Darkest Dungeon 2 is a much different game than its predecessor, which had quite some RPG elements. You had to manage your heroes and upgrade your hamlet to accommodate more heroes, as well as relieve their stress and upgrade their gear. This time around, you and your heroes are stuck in a stagecoach traveling from inn to reach the mountain and defeat the boss residing there, making the game more of a traditional roguelike. You start a run, and if all of your heroes die, it's game over and you have to start over. But is this change a good or a bad thing? Let's check it out and dive straight into the Darkest Dungeon 2.
Behold, the great cities of man, ruined.
We'll start off with the most important element here, and that's the gameplay. The intro sets that up very nicely. You start out in a stagecoach, and with the exception of the very first run, your first stop is the Altar of Hope. There you spend the candles you've collected throughout each run. You can spend those on various upgrades and hero unlocks, but leave some for items too. You'll have to stock up for the journey. From here on, your next stop is the crossroads, where you select your heroes, their paths and skills, and off you go into the perilous land. The valley is always up first. It's very easy and serves more as a testing area for your new group. Other areas aren't as forgiving. Each time you reach an inn, you can strengthen the relationship of your heroes, buff them up for the next part, and fix your stagecoach, which you should do. If you don't, you'll have to do emergency repairs on road and fight off the bandits, which can ruin your run very quickly. The biggest change this time around is no gear upgrades. There's much more emphasis on trinkets, which provide buffs and bonuses, be it flat damage or health percentage, or an item which applies dot on an enemy when you hit them. The items you find or buy can make or break your run, so there's a little bit of RNG involved here. You can also upgrade your stagecoach with items for it. Those range from inventory slot upgrades to better healing while driving and a chance to make flapjacks.
Messy.
So you press on towards the mountain in your flapjack making stagecoach, but you have to make it through several dangerous areas. You have to choose different paths here. It's good to have the minimap open and plan your route as much as you can. Some of the points of interest will be revealed on the minimap, for others you'll need to find a watchtower. Each time you travel a certain amount of leagues, you reach a point of interest. This can be a non-combat encounter, such as a field hospital, where you can remove pesky negative traits, libraries and academic studies where your heroes get trinkets and currency, or also important Shrine of Reflection. Why is the shrine so important? Your heroes unlock new skills here. Each profession has a story with 5 chapters, and each chapter gives your hero a shiny new skill, a lot of them stronger than the base skills your heroes start out with. You'll need multiple runs to unlock every skill for each hero type, but once you unlock it, it's there to stay, and you can equip it on every hero of the same profession later on. The stories are pretty interesting, and I like this system a lot. It gives the heroes a bit of a personality. As in the first game, the stress system returns and you'll want to manage it carefully. A stressed out team means they'll most likely all die. Speaking of that, if one of your heroes dies on the run and you reach an inn despite that, they can be replaced, but this is the one change I don't like. In previous game you could have a backup ready in case things went sideways. Here the hero you get in the place of the corpse is random, so if your crazy flagellant dies, you may be disappointed when a man-at-arms joins your party instead. I really liked the hamlet and the estate in the first game, and the Altar of Hope falls a bit flat here. You upgrade your heroes and give them memories here, but after you depart it can be hours before you see it again, and it's not as personal as the hamlet was. Same goes for heroes. When the run is over, they disband, and while there is an option of taking the same team on a run in a new chapter in the story, it doesn't feel as personal as the first game did, where you had a feeling of dread when your team was failing, not because of the game over screen, but because of the time and resources you put into them, and their relationship seemed genuine. While there is a relationship system here too, it doesn't feel as genuine because of the run has ended back to the beginning thing the game has going on. but in order to form relationships, they have to survive the combat first. There's some changes in combat too, and I'd say they are good. There's no hit chance anymore, and unless your heroes are suffering from certain negative effects, or if the enemy has a dodge chance effect, they will always land their blow. Remember all those damn it moments when your 85% chance attack missed everyone? That's gone here, so if you plan accordingly, you're almost always guaranteed a hit. Some changes have been made to skills also. Plague Doctor's Blinding Gas, for example, doesn't have a stun chance in its base form. For that you have to upgrade it with mastery points you get in your travels and can spend in the inn. Instead it adds blindness, 50% chance the enemy misses their attack. I strangely found myself on the other end of that 50%, but I guess I'm just unlucky. Combat overall does seem like an evolution, and it's really good and satisfying, especially because RNG hit percentage won't laugh in your face. The positioning returns of course, and you'll have to plan out your team carefully and give your heroes appropriate skills. I failed a run once because I foolishly didn't have anyone to hit the 4th position of my enemies, so they were free to buff and heal their allies and I couldn't do anything about it. Losing here feels like a you problem and not the game wanted me to lose mechanic. You'll have plenty of combat items at your disposal. Don't hoard them because you can always get more at the inn or even find them while exploring. Those count as a free action, but you have to use them before using your skill, which I actually forgot a few times and was promptly punished for it. Darkest Dungeon 2 is a hard game, but it doesn't feel unfair, at least not most of the time. Sometimes you'll get unlucky and build up too much loathing, a blue token in the upper right corner of the screen, which buffs your enemies, or get a map where you won't be able to avoid emergency repairs of your coach, but for the most part you can avoid both of those plights. The heroes themselves have multiple paths you unlock with candles at the Altar of Hope at the beginning of a run. You have to check those out carefully and choose which path you want your hero to follow at the crossroads. Let's take Plague Doctor for example. They can be either Surgeon, Alchemist or Physician, each having different buffs and playstyles. Very important thing here, to enter the mountain except on the first chapter you'll need a trophy, so you're forced into clearing one lair in the areas you'll visit. One is enough, so if you decide to clear one in the first area you can avoid others, but lairs are pretty hard and you might want to wait until you get some better trinkets for your team. If you reach the mountain without a trophy equipped on your stagecoach, the run will end. Just a little heads up.
The loathing whispers. Ruin has found you at last.
Graphics continue to be amazing, and while upgraded, the graphics manage to set the atmosphere of the game, and there's some really messed up creatures here. Just look at this. The gothic horror feeling is present throughout all areas, and you will rarely find respite. Unless you reach a field hospital or an inn, even the non-combat encounters on the road feel a bit uneasy. If you manage to find the watchtower, you can breathe a little bit easier because you can plan your route, but even then the feeling that someone or something is watching you remains. Sound complements that as it did in the first game. The narrator nails it once again and the soundtrack is great, haunting music keeping you on your toes. In battles it's more of the same, with widows letting out a haunting scream or cultists and all manners of creatures screaming before wanting to murder your team on sight. All in all, a nice upgrade here.
Onward, and let us hope enough yet remains. And I trembled at its terrible reverberations.
As with my other reviews, I'm not going to spoil the story. This time it's told from the point of view of the academic and it's split into 5 chapters. The narrator's voice acting is one of the best in business and you'll want to listen every word he says, whether it be narrating the main story or the story of your heroes. The world as you see it tells the story itself, ruin and destruction everywhere. Why? You'll find that out yourself. Here's the thing though, the game lacks a little bit of what the first one had. Every run here starts out the same way, Altar of Hope, then the valley and onto the first inn. Those are the first 5 minutes of every run, and even after, the regions you choose from are few. There's 5 in total, other than the valley and the mountain, which are always first and final region. So the game starts to feel a bit stale after a few runs, even though you haven't finished the story yet. While the final boss is different for each chapter, the runs themselves feel pretty samey after a few tries. Despite that, I'm still drawn to the game to try more runs and unlock everything possible.
A smoother ride. For a time at least. The crossroads, where lost souls hope to find their way.
So, what's the verdict? Darkest Dungeon 2 is certainly a good roguelike. That being said, I can understand why some people won't like the shift to a full-on roguelike and cutting out both RPG and town management systems, and the connection to your heroes, and the fact that there isn't really a dungeon here. And while I understand all of the criticism some fans of the first game may have, it is and was very clear since the early access that this is not the same game or the same gameplay loop as the first one. Despite the differences and maybe some watered down elements here, I don't think this is a step back or a regression. It's a very good game with lots of hours of gameplay to offer, great combat system, and a nice atmosphere. A good entry in the roguelike genre which offers hours of fun. If you liked what you saw, subscribe and like, and tell me your opinion on the game in the comments below. Until next time, be good to yourself and others. Goblin out.